My friends, here is the daf yomi for Shabbos Kodesh, Nazir daf Chavav, Nazir 26, but we're going to start on the bottom of Chav Hey on the base, on the bottom of 25b, 2 lines from the bottom, where the Gemara had said the position. We've been discussing a case where there was a Nazir, he took all of his money and he put it into a pile. He said, from this pile, he had in mind that from this pile will be money for the Olah, the chatos and the shlamim that the Nazir brings when he finishes his Nazirus. And then the Nazir died. So the Mishnah Me'ila told us that this money goes to a Nedava. So the Gemara had asked, why does it go to a Nedava? The Demei Chatos, the money from the sin offering, is mixed in with it. So Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish both gave an answer. Rabbi Yochanan's answer was that it's halacha Moshe Misinai specifically by Nazir. That this is a special law by a Nazir, that if he separates the money and then he dies, the money goes for an Nedava. So the Gemara says, Amar Mar, halacha ibn Nazir, v'su, meaning to say it's just halacha by a Nazir, but there's no other cases where we say that if you have, it's just called ma'os setumim, money that's separated. There's no other cases where the money just goes for a nedava, for a voluntary offering. Vatanya, but didn't we learn in the Brisa? V'shar chayav ekinin shebetorah. Let's say we have other cases where you have to bring bird offerings in the Torah. What are some examples where you're chayav olav yored, where it's a variable based upon your income offering, and it says that if you're wealthy, you bring an animal for a chatos and for an olah. You bring these two birds, and if you bring an animal, and if you're poor, then you bring the two birds, one for an olah, one for a chatas. This is by examples of this are like by the mitzora, a woman who's a mitzora, or by a yoledes, a woman who gave birth. So in this case, v'shar chayav ekinim b'torah, all the other cases. So let's say, says our Mishnah, says the Gemara, let's say it said in the Brisa that we're on top of Chavav Amid Aleph. Let's say you separated money for the birds. Then if you didn't say, and you didn't say you just separated the money and you didn't say which is for a chatas or an olah, then, and the Mefarsh explains, even though afterwards he became wealthy, like for example, if he would be a mitzora, if he would be a leper, so he never said whether it be a chatas or an olah. So now if he wants to add on to that money and he brings from it a chatas, he could bring. So, because now he became poor. So, Ratzalaviba and chatas behema, he could bring a chatas behema. Let's say he wants to bring an olas behema, yavi, olas behema, yavi. So in that one, since he didn't specify for which one, he could add on money and he could bring either a chatas or an olah. But look what the Rash says. Below me, the maybe that for sure, if he wants to bring with all the money, either a chatas oaf, a bird offering, or an olas oaf, he could bring it because he's separated for that. But even if he wants to bring it at behema, he could add on the money and bring it. Okay, that's the first din. Not really relevant to the proof because now the next case is, but let's say mace. Let's say this person had separated the money for the birds and he died. But he hadn't designated for which it's going to be for the olah or the chatas, then yiplu and nedava. Then the money goes to a nedava. So we see from here, it's not just by a Nazir that we say Allah Moshe Misinai, by a Nazir that it goes to a nedava. Here we have the case by the olav yored of a mitzora yoledet that it also goes for a nedava in the case where it was Moses Suman and he dies. So the Gemara says, yeah, what Rabbi Yochanan actually said was Allah Moshe Misinai. Tana, read it as Nazir v'chayave kinin d'damulei. And that's right where we say this halacha Moshe Sinai, and anything that is similar to it. So the Tosfos explains that there are some say that the actually way we read it is it's halacha and Nazir v'chol d'damulei, and so therefore how is it similar to a Naz, right? Because this is the case where you bring for one entity, like a Nazir, like a Mitzora, like your Yoledes, you bring these two sacrifices, these two birds. And even though for a Nazir you bring 3, it means a minimum of 2 for a Mitzora and a Yoledes. So the Gemara says, back to the Gemara, and this comes to exclude this position. So now we're saying Now, Rabbi Yochanan is saying that it's halacha Moshe Sinai by a Nazir and anything that's similar to it, like a mitzvah and a yoledes, that if you have Mos Tumin, it goes for a nadava, and it dies, it goes for nadava. So he must be, if he says this rule, it must be trying to exclude a case where it's similar, but it doesn't go for a nadava. So what's that case? Excluding the following case. Let's say somebody has to bring a sin offering, and then he's obligated to bring the sin offering. Let's say Tosfos gives an example that he ate the chaylev, he ate the non-kosher fat, and then what does he do? V'amar, and then he says, "Harei elu lechovasi." After he eats the fat, he says, "Harei alai ola." He says, "I have to bring an ola offering." After he eats the fat, he said, after he's ate the fat and he's obligated to sin offering, he goes to a shear, he gets Brent into a Baal Tshuva, he got worked up, and he says, not only am I bringing the chados, but I'm also bringing an ola, I'm bringing an ola as an adava, and then he separates his money, so now it's called Moses Suman. He takes $1,000, he puts it in, and he says, as a money, he's going to bring an ola and a chados from this, the Amar Harei Elu Lichovasi. And he says, this money is going to be for my obligatory offerings. So then, let's say he says, under those circumstances. So then, what could he do under those circumstances? Well, if he wants to bring from that money a chatas, he cannot bring it. Why can he not bring it? He can't bring the chatas behema because it has the ola mixed in with it. And so since it has the ola mixed in with it, he's not going to be able to bring it because since the money was separated for his obligations, he has to also buy with it an ola. And also, let's say he wants to bring an ola behema, let's say he wants to bring the ola with it. Well, Yavi, he also can't bring it because he also separated the money for the chatas. And also, let's say he wants to purchase the money, but with this money, 2 animals, he also can't do it because the money is mixed together. You have the money of the chatas and the money of the ola, and therefore he has to. And perhaps he's going to buy the chatas. He's going to buy the chatas with the money of the ola, or the opposite. So what does he need to do? He needs to take 2 animals. So what he needs to do is take 2 animals, and then he needs to take these 2 animals, and he needs to say all the money of the chatas that's in this money will apply to this animal, and all the money of the ola that's in this will apply to this animal. And that's the way you can do this acceptable. That's what Tosfos says, Diber Masko Afuke. And Tosfos basically says that that's the only way to do this. And the Rosh also writes something similar. The Rosh says something similar, that he has to do the same idea. But anyway, now back to the Gemara. That's if it is mace. Let's say he died and he left behind this money, Vayulamos Tumim, and then there's the money that's there, but he hasn't designated it. Yelchu Yamar Melach. Now, in this case, unlike where it's the case of a Nazir where we say it goes to Nadava, in this case, it goes to the Yamar Melech. We're not going to say that he could use this money. The money is lost because they're mixed together. And there, Rabbi Yochanan is saying that when he said halacha he ben Nazir, it's excluding this case. We're going to say that the halacha is not that it goes to the Nadava, because here the chatas and the ola are coming on 2 separate things entirely. It's not like the Nazir where it's coming for both a Nazir. Here it's 2 totally separate acts. So we're going to say in this case, the money goes to the Yamar Melech. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi. Now Rav Ashi is going to go back to the law that we said in our Mishnah. We said with respect to a woman who takes a vow that she's a Nazir, and then her husband rejected her vow after she separated the money for the Nazirus, that if the money was to sue him, if it was money that was unspecified, it goes to a Nadava. And if it was the money Mufurashim, and then the money goes, if the Chatas, it goes to the Yamar Melech, the Ola goes to an Ola, and the Shamim goes to a Shalmei Nadava. So, says the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi, he says Rav Ashi, that's where we said that if it was Mufurashim, the Chatas goes to Yamar Melech, the Ola goes to an Ola, and the Shamim goes to a Shamim. That which we said, this halacha, that lo tema, don't say the Amar Elu Chatasi, the Elu Lasi, the Elu Shalmi. Don't say it specifically. It only applies where the woman said, "This is for my chatas, this is for my all, this is for my shlamim." But even in where she says, "This is for my chatas, ola, and shlamim," meaning to say, even where she said this money specifically, that's also called mefurashin. That's also called money that was specified. And the distinction in this case is whether or not the money was said lechatos or la'ola or for shlamim. And if it was clear, like in our Mishnah, that if you say, so again, what is Rav Ashi saying? Don't say it's the case where you said that says Rav Ashi again. Don't say it's the case where he says this is for my chatas, this is for my olah, this is for my shlamim. But even if you say for my chatas, for my olah, for my shlamim, we're still going to say it's considered most mefurashin. And so basically, even if you said there's the distinction is whether or not you said I'm putting this $100 bills for my chatas, this 100 for my olah, and this for my shlamim. Or even if you just said this together is for my chatas or shlamim, in each case we're both going to say it's mefurashim. And the only time where it's most stumim is where he just says this money is for my debt without specifying for my chatas or shlamim. So that's what Rav Ashi says. Alternatively, the an alternative version of what Rav Ashi says is lo tema. Don't say the amar elu chatasi olasi l'shalmi. Don't say in that case where he says about this group of money, this is for my chatas, my olah, my shlamim. Don't say in that case that we're going to say that this is considered mufurashin ela afiu amar elu licholbasi. Even if he just says this is for my obligatory offerings, harein kemifurashin. It's going to be considered like it's mufurash because the lashon of licholbasi means he's going to bring all his karbanos, and so therefore all the money has to go to the Yam HaMelech. And only if he says this karbanos is for my nazirus, then it's going to be considered like Moses Sumim, and it's going to go for a nedava. So the Gemara says, Rava says, let's talk about the Moses Sumim that goes to nedava. Rava says, Hada Amar, and that which we said, Moses Sumim Yiplu Nedava, that money that was designated, and then the person died goes to nedava. Don't say him nafla demei chatas mi b'neiim. Don't say that if the money from the chatas separated from the other money, like for example, let's say he took a portion of the money and he says, and this will be for my chatas. Don't say that the remaining money is harei and kamefurashin. Don't say that the remaining money is like it's mefurash for the olah, the shlamim, and the money that's mixed together goes half for an olah, half for shlamim, and there's no halacha moshe misina that goes to a nedava. But rather, only when the Dmei Chatas is mixed in with them do we say this halacha that it goes for a nedava. Only when the Chatas is mixed in. That's what Rav is saying. That which we say Mos Tumin goes for a nedava, that's only where there's the Dmei Chatas that's amongst them. But if the Dmei Chatas, but then we're going to say that it's like mifurashin. Don't say that. We'll repeat what Rav is saying. Hada Amar Mos Sumin Yipu Nedava. That which we said that the money that was assuming will go for nedava, don't say this case if the Dmei Chatas separated from them. But that if the Dmei Chatas separated from them, we're going to say it's like mefurashin and no longer assuming. So the Gemara says, Tanya Kabasi the Rava, we're on the top of above Amud Beis. What does the Brisa say? Tanya Kabasi the Rava. We have a Brisa like Rava that, let's say, Nazarite separated money, and he said about a portion of the money. Elu chatasi, this money will be for my chatas on behalf of a carbon chatas that I'm obligated to bring. Vashar l'shar nizirosi. So he says this money will be for a chatas and I'm obligated to bring, and all the other money will be for my other karbanos that I'm obligating, i.e. the olah shlamim. And when he says it in this language, he's not going to be able to bring the money either in olah or shlamim. He needs to take this money and buy an olah shlamim. And then the man dies before he bought the karbanos. So it says Rava, the Brisa says, El chatasi v'ashar l'shar nizirosi. Then we're going to say under those circumstances, the mechatas, the money for the chatas, Yachol Yam HaMelech. The money from the chatas, he can't benefit from it because the owner has died. V'ashar and the rest of the money, needs to buy two animals, and he say all the money from the shlomim will go for a shlomim, and all the money from the olah will go for the olah, and he brings one for an olah, one for shlomim, umol and bekuam. And if a person uses this money that has the money of the olah and shlomim, he's in violation of the elah, and he's a violation of the elah. Even though by shlomim there's no me'ilah, because for sure he's using also the money of the olah. But you're only in violation of the me'ilah if you use all the money, but not if you use a portion of the money. But let's say he separated money and he said, this will be for my olah, and the rest will be for the rest of my nazirus. Then we're going to say, that from the money of the olah, he brings an olah, and in Vashar, but the rest of the money, Yipu and Nadava. The rest of the money goes for Nadava. He brings for them a voluntary communal offering because that's halacha Moshe Sinai, that the money of the chatas that's mixed in goes for Nadava. Umo and Bekula, and if he uses all the money, then it's going to be considered Me'ilah because there's chatas there in that money. Umo and If you just use mitzvah and a portion of it, then you're not going to be in violation. And so says the Gemara, Amarav, Loshana, this law that it's halacha Moshe Sinai, that the money that is setumen will go to Nadava. Don't say this. Loshana, it was only taught Elamos. Don't say that's only the case where it refers to he separated money and he didn't specify which it's going to. Avol behema, let's say he separated an animal which was not able to be used for a Nazir. Like let's say he separated a bull or a goat. Neither one is brought as an offering, and then he dies. By then, we don't say the halacha Moshe Sinai that it goes to an adava, because we're going to say harei kimifurashes, that if he separated an animal, then we're going to say like it was mifurashes, like he designated it. And since a portion of the chatas is mixed in, then the animal is going to die. And so too, if he separated three animals that are not able to be brought as a carbon nazir, then the law is like all of them, like it's mixed in with the taruvos, and then we're going to say that all the animals will die. And so Amar Rabbi Nachman, Hada Amri, it says Rabbi Nachman, that which we taught, that Rav Huna said in the name of Rav Behema Harei Kimiforeshes, that if you separate an animal that was not able to be brought, it's like a din of an animal that was, it's like din of money that is Mifureshes. Whoa, Shanu, don't say this. Aloha, Ella, Tamima. This law was only said when the animal has no blemish. And since you're able to bring another carbon, then we're going to say it is Kedusha Saguf. And you can't, since you're able to bring it for another carbon, it's going to be Kedusha Saguf, and you can't sell it. Avobalas Mum, but if the animal had a blemish, Hareik is Sisuma, then it's like the animal was Sisuma, like it's like the money was put into a big pot, and therefore the money will go to an Adafa. Avol Naska, but if we separated a piece of silver, a piece of gold, well, we're not going to say the Lachol Moshe Sinai, but that is going to be like a piece of, that's like you have, let's say, a piece where you set a portion of it will be for chatas, and you need to take in the Yam Melech. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Afilu Nasla. You could even say this law by case of like a block of gold and silver, of all sevar shalkoros, but a bundle of beams. We're not going to say this halacha. So we'll stop here. We'll pick this up on Sunday morning. It's a very small daf on Amud Aleph, so we'll stop here, God willing, and we'll review this on Shabbos Kodesh in our yeshiva. A big shkoyach to everybody. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address them.